So let me zoom in exactly where this is. This is just south and southeast of Belleville. That rotation is right in this little hook right here. So it's radar indicated, not necessarily anything on the ground yet, but if you're in the path of this hook, which comes up right around Scott Air Force Base, Mascoutah, probably just east, just east of Belleville. It's probably going to miss downtown proper Belleville. Let me zoom in a little bit more and analyze the Doppler wind so I can kind of pinpoint that rotation for you. We'll switch over to that green and red colors you see here, and the rotation is just south of Smithton right now. So Smithton, you need to be in your tornado shelter, safe shelter, especially if you live just south and southeast. If you're in New Athens, this is going to be just missing to the northwest. You're in the tornado warning. If you're taking shelter, you're doing the right thing. But let me just show you the path of this thing right here, right over Prairie du Long, headed towards Freeburg. Freeburg definitely need to be in your tornado shelter, be down in the basement. Now, if you don't have a basement, you're getting down to the lowest level where you're putting as many walls between you and the outside. So inside, away from windows, lowest level, preferably the basement, as this moves your way. I'm going to check out the timing on this, too. It should be moving northeast about 20 to 30 miles an hour. They're saying 20. I'm going to go at about 25 miles per hour. And that gets it into Freeburg in about 12 minutes. So Freeburg, 12 minutes coming your way. Let's zoom in a little bit more, and you're going to notice Smithton pop up. Smithton, you're in that hail core right here, especially the northeast side of town. So just inside and away from windows in this location. But anywhere from Smithton southeast to around Prairie du Long and Freeburg, this triangle right here. That's where this rotation that could produce a tornado is going to be moving in the next 10 minutes or so. What about farther downstream from that? As I zoom out a little bit, you'll notice I mentioned Scott Air Force Base in Mascoutah. Let me loop this too, make sure I've got the right trajectory on this. So let's watch this loop, and I'll zoom out. It should be moving kind of northeast. Man, look at that hook really develop right there. This is why the warning was just issued. It really just kind of, the rotation just really intensified. But yeah, northeast. So that is headed towards Mascoutah, which isn't in the tornado warning right now, but just kind of an early heads up for you. About 26 minutes, I would have it coming your way. So radar indicated tornado warning. This is southeast of St. Louis. This is going to miss Belleville just to the south and southeast, the Smithton, Prairie du Long, Freeburg area. And then eventually, if it holds together, maybe up towards Mascoutah. If you're in O'Fallon, Belleville, Shiloh, Swansea, this is going to miss you off to the south and southeast. A little longer range track on this, so folks a little downstream know what's coming your way. And what I'm tracking for you is that rotation. So that little hook, that's where I'm going to track from. I'm not going to track this, which might produce some hail, maybe some gusty winds. I want to focus on what has prompted this tornado warning, the potential for tornado, and about 25 miles an hour. So now we're 12 minutes in Freeburg, Mascoutah, in about 30. That's the hook right there. Now, here's the situation we're going to face today. I think we're going to see more tornado warnings, okay? So I want everyone now through the evening to just have a way to get warnings like the First Alert 4 weather app and have a plan to take shelter should you need to. Here's why. See all these storms that are flaring up? So we're starting to get these storms to flare up. On top of that, there's a warm front. And I'm going to draw it. We were analyzing behind the scenes, so I'm going to kind of draw it from memory here. It's probably like right through here. And it's this warm front boundary. When these storms come up and hit that boundary, it adds a little spin. And that's what can enhance and quickly take a non-severe thunderstorm to now a strongly rotating, potentially tornadic storm. That's what just happened right here around Smithton. And that so far is radar indicated. Meteorologist Leah Hill is with us, obviously, and she's in touch with the National Weather Service on our instant message chat, along with emergency managers. Are you getting anything on chat there?
No, they're continuing to monitor that rotation, and further up in the storm, we're seeing that the rotation is intensifying with this one. So maybe not directly at the surface that rotation is intensifying, but higher up in the storm it is, and that could eventually wrap around to the surface. So it's still very much in a favorable environment, and I think as we continue to go forward in the next 5-10 minutes, we'll continue to see that intensify. That's about all the chatter. Nothing, no reports of it being on the ground, nothing being on the ground. It's still very much radar indicated.
That's Good news and bad news. The bad news is National Weather Service is seeing up aloft. So we're scanning the lowest possible level we can. That's what I always show you because we want to show you what's closest to the ground. This is probably maybe 1,500, 2,000 feet above the ground. They're looking at scans all the way to 5,000 feet to try and analyze the storm. And they're saying, hey, up above, it is rotating even stronger. We just don't know if that's translating down to the ground. That's what radar indicated means. The radar's indicating strong rotation. At least aloft. It could be down on the ground, and oftentimes you notice it aloft before it gets down to the ground, and that actually ends up help saving lives and keeping people ahead of the storm. So Weather Service has done a great job of issuing the radar indicated tornado warning on this. Where would it be? It would be right in this little skinny hook right here. So what's happening is air is flowing up into the storm. This is the updraft zone of the storm right here, and then on the back side it's wrapping around. So where it wraps around and where the inflow is, that connection, that is where the tornado can form. So if air is flowing up in, the cool air, you know when you get hit by a storm and it cools off, all that rain, that's wrapping around. And so you would end up with a tornado right in that zone right here if a tornado develops. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at it. Where is it? It's southeast side of Smithton. If you're in Smithton and you're down in the basement, you're absolutely doing the right thing. If you're in New Athens, this is missing you just to the northwest by, maybe a mile or two, right? So if you live on the north side of town, you should be in your tornado shelter. Let's zoom in a little bit and see a little more cities that'll pop up as we zoom in. So we mentioned Freeburg. It's beelining kind of towards you because it's over Prairie du Long now, headed up towards Freeburg. Last check, it was like 12 minutes. It's probably down to 9 or 10 minutes at this point. This little area right here is where the hail is, and there's probably some small hail, maybe some gusty winds. That's going to ride up towards Mascoutah, but then we also have this potential tornado riding up towards Mascoutah as well. We zoom in a little bit more. This is pretty much crossing and now east of Prairie du Long, but crossing 159. So in St. Clair County, south of Belleville, 159, and even south of Smithton would be where that possible tornado is, and it's about to cross 13. There's 13 right there, and head up towards very near Freeburg. So crossing 13 in about 6 minutes or so. Let's zoom out a little bit. You can see the warning does not extend into Mascoutah, but I keep mentioning them. You've got Scott Air Force Base, Mascoutah, and even folks downstream that just want to pay attention and know what's going on with this radar-indicated tornado warning. We've got about 15,000 people just in this warning right here in St. Clair County, and no doubt there's a lot more people in the Metro East that are curious about this because you're talking about a tornado warning that's just south of the heavily populated Belleville, Swansea, Shiloh area. And as this moves to the northeast, eventually, if it holds together, it would eventually get towards not only Mascoutah, but then into Clinton County. Timing on that, again, has to hold together. We'll see if it does. But Mascoutah, we're talking about 20 minutes, and that's the Clinton County border right there. So you've got St. Clair County and Clinton County right here, and that would be in about 31 minutes if it holds together. And it not just holds together as a storm, but it also would have to show that intense rotation, whether it be aloft or in the lowest level that we're looking at right here. So like areas like New Baden, New Memphis want to be paying attention to this, Damiensville as well. Zooming out a little bit, big picture, we can't lose sight of this. These cells that are developing just to the south and southwest of St. Louis, if I throw on the lightning locator, you're going to notice some of them starting to light up with lightning. So as you see lightning, that just means a little stronger storm. So what's happening is we're getting more and more storms developing. They're coming up towards that warm front, which cuts kind of right through the metro. And that's what this storm is on the warm front. That warm front is adding some enhanced rotation. And it can take some of these storms, like what's west of Festus and just north of Richwoods, and as it comes up to the metro and hits that warm front, which kind of cuts right through here, all of a sudden you can get some quickly spinning storms and maybe some more tornado warnings. So just know that we're kind of in that environment where I think now through especially about 7 o'clock, we're going to see things really flare up and develop. And this won't be the, probably won't be the only tornado warning of the day. I hope it is, but so just be prepared for more warnings and have a way to get the warning and have a way to take shelter. Maybe if you're at home, you're down in the basement. If you're about to go out and go shopping, you're thinking maybe I can hold off on that because he just said now through about 7 things are flaring up. So maybe I kind of hunker down and just wait this out so you're not out in a vulnerable position in the car when some of these storms intensify and perhaps start to rotate. And what I'm specifically talking about is these storms here as they come up and bump up against that warm front. So that's what happened with this storm that's out in St. Clair County. And let's zoom in and get a better look at it, because if you're in Prairie du Long, you're probably in the clear now. We're going to switch over to a slower radar here. I'm still analyzing that hook right there, right there. If you're in Smithton, another 2-3 minutes, its rotation's just southeast of town, but Prairie du Long, east of you now. So Prairie du Long, you're in the clear. Freeburg, you are not. It's coming your way now. Radar indicated. Let's make sure we're transparent and honest with you about this. We don't know that this is on the ground and don't know that's causing damage. I can look at the debris tracker to see if there's anything lighting up. I don't see anything real obvious there. Most likely what we're seeing right here is a signature for hail. So that's not a debris signature, but that's a signature that the radar's pinging off of probably large, different sizes of raindrops and hail there. Because if there's a tornado, it would be a little farther south. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds and pinpoint that for you. Yeah, east of Prairie du Long and pretty much crossing 13, right along or maybe just south of 13 in Freeburg. Right in here. That's where potential tornado is. So there's 13, St. Clair County, near and south of Freeburg. Got 15,000 people in this particular tornado warning, and if it gets extended, you can see towns like Mascoutah, you don't see it listed, but New Baden, Damiensville, you're all going to be wanting to pay attention. If you have any friends or family that are in some of those towns that I mentioned downstream that are not in the warning, might want to give them a text or a call. Heads up, Steve's tracking a radar-indicated tornado that's near Freeburg now. If it holds its rotation and intensity, some of those towns I just mentioned really want to be alert and ready to get to safety. And that's one way you can help if you have friends or family that are in some of those towns that I just mentioned that are kind of downstream. Speaking of which, let's get a track on this now that it's moved a little bit, and I'm going to pinpoint that location right there. About 20 to 25 miles per hour northeast. So some new times for you. We're down to about almost 20 minutes in Mascoutah. We mentioned New Baden, about 36 minutes. This is longer. I mean, 35, 45 minutes, New Baden to Damiensville, a lot can happen. This thing can completely fall apart. Let's hope it does, especially as it lifts north and kind of away from the warm front. My hope is that because the warm front added the rotation and that circulation, as it gets away from that boundary of the warm front, maybe that rotation weakens. Let's hope that's the case, but at this point, still strong enough for that radar-indicated tornado warning and coming right into the Freeburg area. Leo, we've got emergency manager who's great down in Freeburg too. Have they mentioned anything that they've seen or heard from their area?
I've been checking. They are keeping an eye on it, but it looks like it's still radar indicated. And as you mentioned, with it being just moving north a little bit of that boundary, I've actually drawn the boundary here. The main forcing is along the boundary, and there's weaker forcing north of it. So at least for right now, I think the strongest storms are going to be right where that boundary lies. And as you mentioned, as it moves a little bit north, it weakens, and I'm seeing that already with this storm. But south of the boundary, there's a couple more like this one near Festus that I'm watching closely. It's going to be along that boundary very soon here. So we'll have to see how that interacts with the forcing associated with the boundary if it strengthens even more. Haven't seen those strengthening signatures yet, but I just want to let everybody know that we're keeping an eye on these storms that are to the south as well. None of them are severe warned or warned by any means, but they could become that depending on that interaction with the boundary.
Yeah, thank you for analyzing that. And that warm front's going to change. I mean, it's going to lift north slowly, but here we are at almost 4:30, and we've got a boundary that's going to enhance the warm front. That's going to enhance some rotation on storms right around the evening commute. So if you have friends, family that you know about the next 30 minutes, they're about to hit the road, maybe just give them a text and a heads up. Hey, we're in a first alert weather day. There's a chance that some of these storms could rotate and produce tornadoes. Make sure you get updates before you leave. because if there's an opportunity where we're on the air, and by the way, we're not always on the air, we're also live streaming on the First Alert 4 weather app, firstalert4.com, and there's an opportunity for them to watch us on their phone, and we mentioned their area, their location, then maybe they can stay put in a safe area before they head out. Okay, right now, Freeburg, you still need to be in your safe area. Prairie du Long, you're in the clear. I've zoomed out a little bit. I think, you know, as we do see some of these storms come up and hit that warm front, we're going to have to really be vigilant. So thankfully, we have a team. Meteorologist Leah Hill is here, and Leah, do me a favor and just let me know if we start to hear of any other areas that we really need to address. Otherwise, I'm going to go in and focus on exactly where that rotation is in St. Clair County right now. We mentioned it's going to miss Belleville, completely miss Belleville. In fact, even that heavy rain and probably some hail in here, that misses Belleville. Rotation a little farther to the south. Looks like the core switched from up here to now here. So if you're in Freeburg, you're getting hammered by heavy rain, maybe some hail, but just on the east-southeast side of town, that's where a possible tornado is. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds and analyze that. This is going to update shortly, but that's where in the latest image it was. It's probably crossed 13 now. As soon as we get new data, updates about anywhere from a minute and a half to 2.5 minutes, but I think that's going to end up probably right around where 13 and 15 join, right here, south of town. So it's right there, and imagine it moving to the northeast. If I switch back over to the typical radar, we call it reflectivity, you can kind of see right in here. That's where the inflow is, and then anywhere from Freeburg down south to around 13, possible tornado, right in this little hook right here. So Freeburg, you're getting hit with the heavy rain. It's possible southeast or maybe a little farther south of town, a tornado. Radar indicated at this point. Haven't seen anything in chat that says anything about damage or emergency manager down there who's really spot on and has a lot of connections, usually jumps in chat and updates us. So in a way, that's good that we haven't heard anything at this point from them. But this continues to trek to the northeast and eventually is going to cross Illinois Route 4 in St. Clair County. So let's zoom in a little bit more. And as I do, you'll see Mascoutah pop up there. And then there's Illinois Route 4, just outside the red box. So the red box represents the tornado warning. Mascoutah, we've been mentioning you just to make sure that you're ahead of this storm, getting the first alert. There is that threat for a tornado in about now 13 minutes. So about 13 minutes or so. This southern flank, it's anywhere in that area right there, because that's where the rotation is. So you've got the inflow coming up here. Inflow is air flowing into the storm. Well, eventually it goes up and it produces the rain and the hail. So out ahead of the storm is the inflow, but eventually it becomes the updraft. That's what this is right over Freeburg, especially the north side of town. Well, what goes up must come down. You got the downdraft, which wraps around the backside here. And when it wraps around, it creates this circulation. So that's why I've kind of put two arrows. I don't see one specific area. It's kind of just, well, that is pretty specific though. I mean, that's probably half a mile distance. But bottom line is it's east of 15, riding up towards Mascoutah and Illinois Route 4 in the next about 10 to 15 minutes or so. That inflow is a little more pronounced in the latest image too. So it's just stronger inflow. And that's why you see a little notch right there. So this is a little notch. And the reason why it's not straight and filled in with red and orange is because the air is flowing up. And because it's going up, it can't come down here, it comes down here. So this is just a kind of a visual for me on radar that you've got strong inflow. It's gonna wrap around and create possible tornado by now, either south of town or southeast side of town of Freeburg. If you're in Freeburg, you should be in your tornado shelter, and I would say literally by 2 minutes, it'll be completely east of you. But you're getting pounded right now. You probably hear it. So stay in your tornado shelter. You'll notice our cameras from the Ford Skycam network, whether it be downtown or Farmington, you see there. We're monitoring the skies. Meteorologist Leah Hill is here as well, and she'll monitor Shiloh. Keep an eye on Shiloh too. You got some new information?
Yeah, folks might be wondering why we haven't been put in any sort of watch yet, and I just want to let everybody know that one should be coming out very shortly. I would imagine it'd be somewhere along this boundary, and for all counties to the north, so probably St. Louis County would have been included in that. St. Clair County, where we already have that tornado warning, that would probably be included in it either. And as we've been mentioning, it's that boundary. This is the focal point of any forcing for these storms. So the expectation is that as the storms move over that boundary, they enter a more favorable environment. And as they get away from the boundary, at least in the short term, the hope is that they weaken. And we've seen a little bit of that with the storm that's east of Belleville, but we'll have to see if that trend continues. But yeah, just want to let everybody know that a watch is coming very shortly, and I'll have that update when it does come out.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, a watch just means conditions are favorable for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms that can produce hail and wind. We already kind of know that, and we've been telling you that, but I think the watch will just add a little awareness, hopefully. Okay, what are we looking at here? This is storm fuel, what I call storm fuel. It's really instability. It's the measurement of storm's ability to explode upwards, because you need a strong updraft in order to get the strong downdraft to create a strong storm that can create tornadoes, wind and hail. So think of this as the storm fuel. In that red, that's plenty. That's sufficient for sure. And if you look what happens, this is going to be model data. So we're going from 4:30 now, and now here I am by 7:30. There's still storm fuel enough, and there's that warm front. So you have the warm front that helps add a little rotation. You have the storm fuel that creates explosive storms. You have the ingredients that can create severe weather. It's just another reason why the Storm Prediction Center, they're the ones who issue watches, is going to issue a watch. I do want to show you this as we go forward in time now. Now I'm at 10 o'clock at night. You see how a lot of that red has disappeared? So the storm fuel is starting to really diminish and start to go away late evening. And this is what we forecasted yesterday. We said from late afternoon to late evening, on guard for severe weather. By late evening, the threat's diminishing. I think we'll still be on guard probably till about midnight. But I really think between now, 4:30, and probably about next 4 hours or so, 8:30, let's really be on guard for tornadoes especially, but also wind and hail to develop. I just wanted to show you that kind of what we expect to evolve tonight, which is now through the next hour or two, more explosive storms. And then, of course, that watch will be coming out soon. Leah, go ahead.
I just wanted that emergency manager that we've been waiting to see if they have any sort of update, that storm east of Freeburg. He's saying, well, yes, they've seen heavy rain, of course, some hail. They have not measured any strong winds with that storm. Okay. So, and thanks to, I think that's Eugene who chimed in there. He's great. Appreciate him chiming in. And remember, that's just what he knows and measured. I guarantee you there's going to be strong winds. I just know how strong they are and if they're going to hit one of his sites. But the question is it producing a tornado? We don't know that now. And the fact that he's not saying I'm hearing any damage or not hearing from residents of any damage or debris in the air, that's all good signs. Because remember, it is radar indicated at this point, and it will be right here. So St. Clair County, tornado warning, radar indicated. St. Louis in the clear for now, but remember, we've got new storms developing, a warm front draped across the metro, and as we get right into the heart of the evening commute, I think some more storms could start to rotate, like this one here. So we know the storm's rotating. What we don't know is if it's producing a tornado on the ground. Let's hope it's not. But Freeburg, that's... I don't want to say you're in the clear yet, because if there's a tornado, it's right here, about a half mile east of town. So I don't want to say you're in the clear, but another couple minutes, okay? But it would be on the east side of town at this point. So it's traversed from southwest side of town to east of town. Here's Route 4. This goes up towards Muscuda. And that timing is going to be Route 4 south of Muscuda in about 9 minutes. We're going to have to watch this closely. If it goes up just a little bit more, I mean, you're more in line to get hit in Muscuda. Right now, I think that rotation is going to be really close to the south side of town and maybe not right over. However, see this, all that red and purple? That's the downdraft that's producing the wind and hail. So that's going to come right up. So that's going to be really heavy storm for sure. But the question is, will that rotation right there? And you can really see the hook in that. Let me pause it, and I'll show you what I'm seeing, because I don't see it as strong in the Doppler wind data.
Yesterday we had a tornado in Potosi. It was an EF1, out of 0's the weakest, 5's the strongest, but it had a really significant, bright, strong signature. This signature in Doppler winds here, there's definitely rotation here, but it's not a real strong signature. That's good news. But then you go look at the reflectivity, which is the normal radar, and we know the storm's rotating. So how do you put those two together, and what do you come out with a result? Well, the storm's rotating up above. We just don't know if that's translating to the ground, and we're not getting a real strong signature in the lowest level near the ground. That could be a good thing. That's Centerville in the powerhouse Silverado on the right-hand side. See those dark skies too, really turbulent view there. So you're gonna have real turbulent, dark-looking clouds. That can be a good thing. That gets people to get indoors or at least pay attention to the weather. But that's in Centerville. Okay, this storm we know is rotating, and so what I'm seeing here is this real strong inflow right up into this part of the storm right here, and then the backside. This is where you'd get that downdraft, and right where those two kind of interact, that's where you would end up with a possible tornado, which is now pretty well east of Freeburg. So if you're in Freeburg, you're in the clear now. Got a new tornado warning. It's an extension of the one we've been tracking. That's not good news. What that means is the rotation is still strong enough that the Weather Service thinks this either is producing a tornado or could, and that's why some folks downstream are now on the warning. We gave you that first alert in Muscuda, New Baden, Damiansville earlier and timed it out for you. Now you're actually in the tornado warning. We also mentioned anyone who's not in those cities, give friends a call who are, just to give them that heads up. Well, now they're getting ready to, some of them getting ready to take shelter. I say some because, if you're in New Baden, you still got some time before this gets to you. Give you an idea here. That rotation's going to be crossing Route 4 now, near and south of Muscuda in about 8 minutes, and then New Baden's about 22 minutes. So now that we have 2 tornado warnings, we've got one with 7,000 and the other 20,000. So combined almost 30,000 people. It's one of the reasons why we're still on the air with this. Radar indicated, but 30,000 people and now 20,000 just got alerted. Everyone has those phones that blare when you get those tornado warnings. Hopefully it's the First Alert 4 weather app and what's called the WEA, Wireless Emergency Alert System. And you want multiple sources so you can get that alert. But there's a bunch of people that now are getting those alerts, tuning in here on First Alert 4, or maybe firstalert4.com or the First Alert 4 weather app so you can get that stream. And by the way, if people are tuning into that right now, that if you don't know about the stream, this is really handy because if you have to run to the basement, you can get this coverage in the palm of your hand, tablet, phone. All you have to do is on the First Alert 4 weather app, scroll down to where you see this, First Alert 4 Weather Now, and you get this basically. So if you have to run away from the TV and you're down in the basement and that makes you anxious and nervous and because you don't know what's going on, watch us in the live stream. We'll explain where the threat is, what the threat is, and where it's going next. We'll keep that anxiety down. And by the way, it's still a radar indicated tornado warning. So you see 2 red boxes, but it's 1 storm. So it's been extended now. Also keeping an eye on these storms to the south of St. Louis as these come up. Let me just peek at those real quick and see if there's any strong rotation. I know Leah's been probably keeping an eye on that. Have you seen anything?
Nothing of note with those storms, but they're very close to the boundary. So I feel like in the next 10, 15 minutes or so, we might start to see some changes with those storms that are down in Jeffco, for example. One thing with the one that we're tracking that's tornado warned, anytime we get this little, like these smaller cells out ahead of it, they've been being ingested into the storm, and I've been noticing that kicks up the rotation a notch. So I feel like going forward, that should be something that we should watch as the storm strengthens or weakens. But here's that little cell just out ahead of it. It's about to be ingested, so we might see the rotation within it kicking up a notch within the next few minutes.
Great, thank you. And appreciate you keeping an eye on the other storms that are out there too. So what she's pointing out is this is not the tornado. This is just a little isolated cell that's going to kind of merge. Sometimes these can enhance the rotation, and sometimes they can weaken it. You never really know. You just got to track it and watch it. What we are watching though is, let me zoom out a little first here. St. Louis in the clear, Belleville, O'Fallon in the clear, Lebanon in the clear. This is the rotation right here. This is the core that could produce hail and wind. So let's zoom in on that and show you that distinct hook echo, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Right here, this little hook, that's a signature on radar that the storm is rotating. We know that, but storms can rotate above the ground and not produce strong enough rotation on the ground to create damage, thus no tornado. We don't know that. So what do you do with a radar indicated tornado warning? It's kind of like a seatbelt. You get in the car, not because you know you're going to be in an accident. You buckle up in the car because it's the right thing to do just in case, right? So folks in Mascoutah and eventually New Baden, Damiansville, it's time to buckle up. Stay alert. If you're in Mascoutah, you should already be in your tornado shelter, down in the basement. If you don't have a basement, you're going down to the lowest level. And you're putting as many walls between you and the outside, staying away from windows. If this does produce damage, you got debris, you buckled up, right? You're in the safe spot. If it rotates above and never produces a tornado, that's a great thing. But just want to be honest and transparent with you that so far, radar indicated, this has gone through Prairie du Long and Freeburg and is headed towards kind of the south side of Mascoutah right now. Let's zoom in a little bit and analyze some of the cities and roads and stuff in the path of the actual rotation, because that would be where the tornado is right there. And we kept mentioning Route 4. It's about a minute or two away from Route 4. So about 2 minutes crossing Route 4 south of Mascoutah, which is, I pan up a little bit, there's Mascoutah there. Eventually, that potential tornado crosses 177 in about 6 minutes just to the east of Mascoutah. If you're on the kind of northwest side of town, or even town, you're going to get hit with this heavy rain and maybe some hail. But the tornadic portion is just like, a mile or so south of town crossing Route 4. And there's that isolated cell that's getting ingested up into the main storm that's rotating right now and could be producing a tornado. I mentioned New Memphis. Let's see, I think this rotation and thus tornado is going to hit 160 north of New Memphis, or very close to maybe in New Memphis in about 14 minutes. So it just depends on that trajectory. It's about a half mile to a mile difference. So that's New Memphis. And then Damiansville, and that's Interstate 64 in Clinton County. That would be in about 21 minutes. There's New Baden. At this point, I think the rotation, unless this fizzles and something else develops, New Baden, I think this is going to miss you to the south and just to the southeast. But timing-wise, you're going to get hit with the heavier core that can produce some hail, strong winds. That's this right here. That would be in New Baden in about 10 minutes. All right, let's zoom out and get the big picture here. I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton alongside meteorologist Leah Hill. We're tracking a tornado warning. It's radar indicated right now southeast of St. Louis, but new storms and new warnings may develop because we have storms that have developed, and as they come up and hit a warm front that's roughly through the metro here, that may locally in that storm enhance the rotation and create new warnings. We do have a new watch that has come out. And is that a tornado watch? Let's see. It is tornado watch. This just came out. What's the difference between a watch and a warning? A watch is larger, and it means conditions are favorable. You don't have to do anything immediately. It's just stay alert. That's what this is, okay? This is...
Goes until 10 p.m.
Thanks. That's going to go until 10 p.m. A warning is different. A warning means act now. There's a clear and present danger, or radar senses there could be a danger, meaning a tornado in this case. And again, it's radar indicated. So we don't know that that's on the ground. So you just do the right thing, play it safe rather than sorry, get to your safe shelter. Hopefully this storm rotates, and it is rotating, rotates above you, never produces a tornado, moves on its way, everyone's safe. That's what we hope. We have no signs of this being on the ground at this point. So radar indicated in now eastern St. Clair County. This particular storm has missed Belleville, Fallon area. The Shiloh, is that in No, that's the central west end. I just want to see what it looks like out in Shiloh. I'm going to pop that up, and it's actually facing to the east, so kind of the right direction too. That's Interstate 64 and the Ford Skycam network from Shiloh Memorial Hospital. Obviously been hit with storms and rain, but kind of looking back, one of the things I've noticed too, it's really kind of hazy out, and if you've stepped outside, Leah mentions it's gotten humid. We had some sunshine, the warm front, that's all a culprit, but when it's really humid in the low levels, it makes it easier for a tornado to develop. In fact, tornadoes need humidity near the ground. So we've noticed that, and I noticed that haze there. We see it on the Ford Skycam network from Shiloh here. And I think what we're going to eventually see is some of these storms hit that warm front boundary and intensify. And we'll see if that happens in the next probably 2 to 3 hours. Well, it'll happen shorter than that, but definitely stay vigilant the next 2 to 3 hours here as more and more of these storms develop. Right now, the only one that shows that potential for strong enough rotation is east of St. Louis, down around east of Freeburg now too, because you're in the clear, and down around Mascoutah. It's going to cross 64 here pretty soon. We'll keep an eye on these cells. Still not seeing any real significant. I mean, there's some inflow, like see that little claw right there. I mean, there's some beginnings of, yeah, some of these storms rotate, but storms can rotate and you don't need a tornado warning. Storms can rotate above you and move on their way, and you never know the difference. It's the ones that are rotating really strongly that the Weather Service is going to analyze and perhaps issue warnings on. We don't have any of those in the Missouri side, just one on the Illinois side. And this is going to continue to trek into Clinton County here as well. Okay, let's zoom back down and give folks a heads up of where this is, because it's pretty much in Mascoutah now. So if you're in Mascoutah, you've been in your safe shelter, stay there. Damiansville, probably a good time to get there now. I'd say you're probably looking at maybe the west, just west of Damiansville, and in maybe 10 minutes or so. Let me zoom in, time this out. Rotations here. Near, pretty much over Damiansville, or maybe just west, in about 14 minutes to 15 minutes. There you go. I'm going to switch over to the Doppler winds to kind of analyze the storm again. The green represents raindrops that are being blown towards the radar. The radar's out in Weldon Spring, so this is going this way. The red are raindrops going away from the radar. So that rotation right over Mascoutah right now. Crossing Illinois Route 4. And moving towards Interstate 64 in about 11 minutes. There's New Baden.
Until 5:15.
Let's see here. I'm going back in time and forwards in time. Rotation probably just south of New Baden, but awfully close. Let's draw another timing on that. So here I mentioned 64 in about 10 minutes. So that also would be roughly where it would be just south of New Baden. If you're in New Baden, be in your tornado shelter. My hope is that what you're going to get hit with is all this red. It represents the rain and the hail and not a tornado. Radar indicated tornado warning over Mascoutah right now. It's crossed Illinois Route 4. It'll be very near Damiansville to just south of New Baden in the next 10 to 15 minutes. What about after that, downstream? We did this earlier before there was even a tornado warning in Mascoutah, where the storm is right now. And I want to do that again to give folks a heads up on downstream where this tornado warning's going. Potential tornado, 25 to 30 miles an hour. I've got it into Albers in about 23 minutes, Germantown in 32, and Breeze, Illinois in about 38 minutes. So, you know, some of those towns, we don't know if this is going to hold its rotation and intensity that long. Albers is already in the tornado warning, and you're kind of square in the path. If the path is accurate and it's right through the middle of this red cone, you're kind of right on it, Albers. And so that would be in about 23 minutes. So you've gotten the alert, but folks like in Germantown, Breeze, haven't gotten the alert because they're not in the red box here. Germantown especially, if you have friends, family out there, just give them a text. They don't have to run to the basement right now, but just tell them, hey, Steve's tracking a radar-indicated tornado. It's over Mascoutah now. It's going to be in Albers in about 20 minutes, Germantown in about 30 minutes. Stay alert. Not just watching us on First Alert 4 here, but remember, you can always get us on that live stream. And I think that's a really handy tool when you have to run to the basement or to your tornado safe shelter and there's no TV there. So you can get us on that tablet, on a laptop, on a phone, and we'll be here walking you through it on that live stream. That hook is still very pronounced right over Mascoutah right now. The Doppler wind signature is not exceptionally bright here. It's not an exceptionally tight signature, but there's definitely rotation right here now east of town. Probably along or just north of 177 and south of 64. So here's Interstate 64 in Illinois, and there's New Baden. There's the potential tornado coming right in between New Memphis and New Baden. So the fact that the Doppler winds aren't showing a real bright signature doesn't mean there's not a tornado. And it also doesn't mean that maybe there was one or one will develop shortly. This is just one scan. And sometimes you get that second scan and boom, it flares up. And what's happened is a tornado has just developed. So even though it's not the brightest, strongest signature, definitely want you to take it serious and be down in the basement. But it is radar indicated, and we'll always be transparent and honest with you about what we're seeing. Pronounced hook, things rotating for sure. The hook is right here. So what I'm seeing is air flowing right up into the storm, right in here. And the reason why, like you only see a little bit of green right here and not the yellows and the reds, because that's actually the air going up. So not much rain is getting down to the ground there. Meteorologist Leah Hill has been checking in on Instant Message Chat. We've got first responders, emergency managers, National Weather Service. Are we hearing any reports, hopefully not, but of anything kind of damage-wise?
Thankfully, no. In fact, what they're watching is similar to what we've been watching, is that the storm, the only tornado-borne storm, the rotation in it has broadened a little bit. I do want to draw your attention, the storm that's moving into Arnold, it's right there on the boundary now, and I have been seeing a little bit of rotation. Again, just because it rotates, it doesn't mean it's strong or it might be warned by any means, but at least for the short term, the storm that's moving into Arnold, that's the next one that has my eye, and it's just about to cross over that boundary. So I do have concern that as it moves through Arnold and moves up north into Afton, that it could continue to strengthen and hopefully nothing happens. But I think we have to monitor that one next for any type of warning potential.
Thank you so much. This is why it takes a team. I mean, I'm sitting here doing a three-dimensional slice on one storm. I can't see every storm, so thank you to Leah for monitoring what else has our eyes out there. And if you're in Arnold, you're getting hammered with rain, but we're not seeing any significant rotation on that right now, okay? But Leah's on it. She is on it. Thank you so much. So that 3D slice, what I wanted to show you is, I mentioned how there's air flowing in and going up. There's the air going up, and it's actually hoisting all this rain and probably some hail up into the air. So we're looking at a three-dimensional slice of the updraft, then the downdraft. Where that updraft and that downdraft wraps around and they intersect right here, that's where you can end up with a tornado. So this is just a visual interpretation of, not interpretation, it's data, it's real data, but it's a visual of the actual updraft right here. So that's the exact location we need to be watching, and that's exactly where a potential tornado, and again, always being honest with you, radar indicated at this point. We just checked in with Leah to see if any reports of damage had occurred. Haven't had it, so this thing is just a long-lasting, rotating storm, a supercell. Supercells are persistently rotating storms that so far we haven't heard of producing any damage. Let's hope that remains the case. We know this thing's producing some hail, though, and the hail core is up here to the north. That's where the rotation is, but we know it's producing hail because we've gotten some video of that. So we can show you out in Mascoutah. I believe it's Mascoutah. Yeah, there it is. Strong winds, hail. You can actually hear it. Kind of. I'm not seeing it as much, but you're hearing it. There you go. I see some of it now. So you're hearing the hail come down. If you're in that hail zone, and that's not real huge hail, so that's not real severe. So I think the person filming this is in okay shape here and to be out there doing that. But you know, if it's real gigantic and they're smashing on the cement, just be inside and away from windows when that happens. That looked like pretty small hail. But that was Muscuda. And that's where this core just came across. And south of the core, where I showed you that interaction between the updraft or inflow and the downdraft, the rear flank downdraft we call it, because it wraps around the rear side, that's where the potential tornado is. So that's now east of Muscuda. So if you're in Muscuda, you're not in the clear yet because you've still got some heavy rain and maybe some of that hail, but the rotation is now east of you, okay? So another couple minutes in Muscuda, and if you watched us in the live stream on your phone so that you could kind of stay with the constant play-by-play, I'm telling you, just another minute or two, you can come up out of your tornado shelter, and you'll be in the clear from this rotation. What town is next? This is going to come really close to New Baden, maybe just south side of town. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds and see if that's lighting up. It's not lighting up, but I definitely can see it right here. That east of town, so east of Muscuda. And as that moves northeast, that trajectory is now a little more towards New Baden. You know, earlier it looked like maybe it was going to miss south, but now it's probably just the south side of town, and this is going to ride up across 64, and there's the update into New Baden. You should be in your safe shelter. We've been mentioning New Baden, Damiensville. I think in between, especially from New Baden to Damiensville, that's where that tornado is going to cross, or at least potential. If you're in Trenton, this is probably going to miss you to the south, unless this thing curls up a little farther north. But it's probably just going to miss you to the south, but not by much. But it's different than the tornado that hit and did so much damage in the farm fields and then eventually into Trenton. Was that March 14th day, or there's been so many tornadoes this spring season, they're starting to run together, but I know for a fact we had one that started northeast of Muscuda, went right up into Trenton. So there's probably a lot of folks out there that are a little nervous and anxious. Well, this one, we don't have any reports of anything on the ground. It's radar indicated, but there is rotation that could create a tornado south of that area, just south, but more towards New Baden.
Steve, I have a picture of that storm as it moved over Muscuda. It's pick 3. I don't know if you want me to talk about it, or
you can grab it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's up here right now. So this just came to us moments ago from Stephanie, and you can clearly see the base of the storm. This was taken a couple minutes ago. I don't know exactly the time of this picture, but it's when the storm moved through Muscuda, and you can see the base of the storm. Of course, it's tornado warrant. Nothing extending to the ground below that base, so just confirms that it's all radar indicated. There's nothing on the ground. But one thing I have been watching, and the National Weather Service, they're seeing this as well, is that the hook on this storm has increased a little bit. Steve, I'm sure you have more on that.
We continue. First Alert 4 at 5 starts now as we continue to track a tornado warning in the Metro East. It is a First Alert weather day. We are going to see more storms flare up. You can see storms that have flared up. They just haven't intensified yet to become severe. But there's a warm front that's kind of draped like this across the metro, and as some of these storms come up and hit that boundary, that warm front, we just need to really keep a close eye on them, because that warm front can actually enhance rotation and a very local isolated storm level. So as some of these storms that are not severe start to come up near that warm front, we're going to be watching that very closely. Meteorologist Leah Hill is monitoring those storms while I continue to track this one in the Metro East. All right, so here we are zooming back in on radar indicated tornado warning. Leah mentioned that the hook is still pronounced, absolutely, and that hook is now east of Muscuda. You are in the clear. Trenton, you are in the hail and heavy rain core, and then south of that, that's where the potential tornado is. And I say potential because at this point still radar indicated. And let's hope it stays that way. But we know this storm is rotating. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds to see if anything has strengthened. It really hasn't strengthened as far as the radar signature here in the Doppler winds, which is good news, but it still shows it rotating. And it's basically kind of right around New Baden right now. So if there's a tornado, it's going to be right in here, south side of New Baden, or coming right at it. And this little hook right here is a hook echo because the wind's on the backside of this storm. So when all that hail right here falls out, the winds actually wrap around. And so that creates what we call rear flank downdraft. Well, at the same time, warm, humid air is flowing up into the storm. We call that the inflow. And so where those interact, you get a little hook, and that would be where the potential tornado is. Let's see where it's going next. So radar indicated tornado warning coming right across south side of New Baden and Interstate 64 here very shortly, moving to the northeast at about 25 miles per hour. And that puts it in Albers. We haven't mentioned you in about 9 minutes or so. So let's make sure our friends in Albers know you've got 15 minutes. Germantown, about 25 minutes. Some of these towns are outside the tornado warning. But if this red box right here gets extended, then all of a sudden you're going to have all those alerts going off on phones, no weather radios in Germantown and Breeze. If you have any friends or family out there, they've got time to just stay alert and pay attention. Just give them a text. Tell them Steve's tracking a radar indicated tornado. It's not on the ground, it's radar indicated at this point, or at least we don't know if it's on the ground. It's just south of New Baden. In a matter of minutes, it's going to cross 64. And just say, hey, Steve mentioned Germantown, he mentioned Breeze, he mentioned Beckemeyer in 40 minutes. You've got time to just pay attention, stay vigilant, and be ready to take shelter should you need to. That also might help some people who it takes them longer to get to shelter. Maybe elderly, maybe there's some people who have to wrangle the kids from outside and get them in and kind of in the next 10 minutes so that they can head to the basement should this radar indicated tornado warning run into Germantown and Breeze, which again are not in a tornado warning at the moment. And hopefully the warning expires, hopefully this weekends and the rotation weekends and the warning is not extended. But if it is, just want to make sure you get that first alert. Albers is in the tornado warning, one of the towns that's really next, Damiensville to Albers. There's that hook right there. Going to be in Albers to Damiensville probably in about 8 to 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So New Baden in your safe shelter now, especially the south side of town, but even in town, you're getting hit with some of the heavy rain and maybe some hail out of this. Rotation-wise, it's crossing 64 now, and will be in between Albers and Damiensville in about 8 minutes. So basement, obviously, if you don't have a basement though, get down to the lowest level and just put as many walls between you and the outside. If you hear me repeat that, usually the people who hear me repeat that, they say, well, he's repeating himself. Well, that's probably because you're not threatened. Now, as soon as you're threatened and the anxiety jumps up, I think people appreciate hearing those steps. Hopefully you have a plan and you know what to do right away. But for those who haven't thought about a plan, sometimes having those safety steps reiterated can be a nice thing for you. So that's just why I continuously do that. Sorry, did we hear, is that Powerhouse Silverado? Is that Kimberly? They haven't found any damage? Okay, and they're in Freeburg, by the way, to our audience. The Powerhouse Silverado's in Freeburg. You see the Ford Skycam network there. Meteorologist Leah Hill's kind of moving around, analyzing the clouds. She's using the camera there that is in the upper right from Christian Hospital, North St. Louis County. And then the Ford Skycam network downtown, looking across the river. Speaking of which, let's zoom out and see what's going on downtown. I've been so focused on this one storm and making sure, New Baden to Damiensville, Albers, eventually Germantown, get the first alert and know what's happening. But I also want to zoom out and see what's going on elsewhere. So we've got that heavy storm we mentioned in Arnold that wasn't showing strong rotation. And that is the case still. So that's good news because that's starting to bump up against the warm front. So heavy storm, not even a severe thunderstorm in Melville and Oakville, and it just came through Arnold. So heavy rain, maybe you get some pea-sized hail out of this. There's Melville, Oakville, and the heaviest is now east of Arnold. What I'll watch, though, is to see if the rotation intensifies as it kind of nears or is pretty much on the warm front. And I don't see it right now. Nothing real strong there. So that's good news for now, but let's monitor that. I mentioned the warm front. I'm going to kind of draw from memory. It may have lifted a little north, and Leah, you tell me if I'm, close enough here. But that's probably about it.
That from what I'm seeing with the latest data. A quick note, the National Weather Service got a report of a funnel cloud north of New Baden.
North of New Baden?
Yes.
That doesn't sound right.
I'm
south. It would probably be south, yeah. Maybe the report didn't, north doesn't sound right. North would be like that heavy rain and hail. I mean, at least small pea-sized hail, but south is where that rotation is. But that storm that we're tracking with the radar indicated rotation, that is right along that front. So this warm front here can enhance the rotation on these storms. So like in the one in Melville, Oakville, as that comes up against it, the one that's in Eureka, not even a severe thunderstorm warning. Heavy, sure. Lightning, yes, but not a severe thunderstorm warning. And I don't even see, hook echo or anything like that on this, but as it comes up against that boundary and as new storms develop, you can start to see there some new storms starting to just kind of bubble up. We'll have to watch and see if those start to rotate like this one has, that's headed towards, it's in New Baden, headed towards like the Germantown area. Zoom in a little bit here. There's Trenton getting hammered by the heavy rain and hail, but again, because there was a tornado that hit Trenton earlier this year, the rotation from this potential tornado is going to stay south of you, so it's not going to hit Trenton. This is where the tornado would be, right around there. So it's kind of on or just south or southeast of New Baden. But the fact that there's a funnel cloud does not surprise me. We know this storm is rotating. We just don't know if it's producing a tornado at this point or not. I'm going to switch to our Shiloh cam. I think I've still got it in cam 2. There it is. And I'm going to just bear with me here. I'm going to log into it so I can kind of pan. That's Interstate 64 looking a little bit to the north and northeast, but I want to see more sky to the east on the backside of that storm. And I can't make it out because there's too much rain, but that is the backside of the storm that we're tracking with the radar indicated tornado warning. So let me show you what that looks like. So that red box is the tornado warning. Our camera is right about here, and we were just looking at the backside. Not going to see anything there. I wouldn't even see rotation. If it were kind of south, that would be a better view, or south east. But that's the rotation. And let's give some folks a heads up, because this is nearing a point where the Weather Service might start to extend this tornado warning. And we've mentioned Germantown and Breeze. Let's get an idea. For instance, Carlisle, you would be in this path. And that would be in about 30 minutes, moving a little more northeast. So maybe it's just kind of in between Breeze and Carlisle. There's Carlisle Lake in about 30 minutes. Germantown, Breeze, Carlisle, not in a tornado warning right now. We'll see if the red box that represents the warning gets extended farther to the east. There's definitely a rotating storm. The question is, as the Weather Service kind of analyzes all the slices up and down from near the ground to way up above the ground of this entire storm, they'll analyze and see if they think it's strong enough to actually produce a tornado. But it's pretty much in New Baden now. And if I switch over to the Doppler winds, that's lighting up a little bit more. Yeah, and that just came through New Baden. Let me go backtrack here. Ooh, stronger there. Yeah, so that was at 5:03. That was 6 minutes ago, right about here. And then now it's coming right at Albers. And as that moves northeast in between Breeze, Germantown, timing on that for you. So Albers now, I told you, I think 25 minutes ago to be in your safe shelter, but Germantown, especially north of Germantown, move that so you can see, about 9 to 12 minutes or so. And that rotation into Breeze in about 13 minutes. If you're in Trenton, we mentioned it would stay to the south. This will also stay just south of Aviston, Illinois. Damiensville you're very close to that hook. Let me switch over to the radar. So this is the air flown up into the storm, and it's anywhere up and down this little hook right here that you can end up with a tornado. So Damiansville still be in your tornado shelter, definitely Albers. This would stay just south of Aveston, and then that breeze to Germantown area. So imagine the hook right here, potential tornado kind of anywhere along that hook, and then translate that up, yeah, breeze to Germantown. And I say anywhere along the hook, like sometimes if it's a real strong signature, it'll be kind of on that southeast side of the hook, but sometimes it can develop right in that little inflow notch right there. So there's, you know, about a quarter-mile area there within that relatively large hook that it could be. And that's why I'm mentioning a couple towns like Damiansville and Albers as opposed to just Albers, especially if you live north of Damiansville. If you're in New Baden, about a minute or two that you're in the clear. I mean, you're pretty much in the clear now. The rotation's just off to the northeast, but just give it like another beat and let that storm completely pass you. Albers, definitely still in the path, and we're getting pretty close to where they're going to have to make a decision if this is going to get extended or not, but we've kind of let some folks downstream get that first alert to know what's coming your way. And that's what I'm going to do right now again. And I'm going to do a little bit of a different type of track here. I'm going to track that whole hook. See how it's in a little wider area? About 25 miles per hour to the northeast. So Germantown, we're at about 10 minutes. Breeze in about 13. Beckemeyer, and then Carlisle. Again, a lot of these towns not in a tornado warning. We'll see if it does get extended, but that's a radar indicated tornado right here. Haven't had any reports of anything doing damage, but still this thing's rotating. And as it continues to move northeast, those are some of the towns that are going to be impacted. Because they're not in a tornado warning, give friends a text or a call and just say, hey, heads up, Steve's tracking a radar indicated tornado warning. Just went through New Baden. Haven't had reports of damage, but he mentioned your town. So just want to make sure you're alert and aware. Zoom out a little bit. And that's the only warning we have. We do have a tornado watch that has been issued, and that watch goes until 10 o'clock. There's the watch area. So the reason why like areas south, Farmington, are not in it is because the warm front is kind of right through here and lifting north, and it's that warm front that's going to add the instability and the rotation to create a possible tornado. New tornado warning.
Extension, Steve?
It is. Okay, thanks, Leah. So Leah said it's an extension. So that means some of those towns we just mentioned are now in a tornado warning. I'm going to go to that in a second. I just want to remind you, tornado watch means, I like to think of, you have binoculars, you're watching. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to run to the basement. Tornado watch. Conditions are favorable. You're watching. You're staying alert. Tornado warning is different. Tornado warning means it's either happening or radar indicates such strong rotation that a tornado could be happening or may imminently happen. And that is a danger you need to act on. And that is a new tornado warning that includes Breeze, Carlisle, Germantown, some of those towns we were mentioning. And that the good news is we gave you the heads up. Maybe you have friends or family that gave you a call as well. So now we've got another 18,000 people. You know, on the course of this, the other one has 9,000 people, but on the course of this rotating storm, it's been rotating for a while, from Smithton to Mascouda to New Baden to Albers. It's coming into Albers. If you add up, you know, all the people that have been in tornado warnings at one time or another, let's see, this one is 18, so you're probably at like 50,000 people. So a lot of people relying on that alert, even though there's a lot of folks who are wondering, you know, hey, it's dry where I live, what's going on? Well, we've had over 50,000 people in tornado warnings. We have another 18,000 that just got the alert. And on top of that, these storms, as they bump up against a warm front, could start to rotate. And so some of those areas where you're not getting a storm could all of a sudden have a storm move in that starts to rotate, and we'll be here to let you know what's happening, get you the first alert, and keep you ahead of the storm. This little section right here is where the warm front is draped across. And of course, it's 5:15. We're getting into the evening commute. So definitely something that we want to stay on top of so that if a new warning comes out, we can jump on it, let you know about it. Maybe you can give friends or family a heads up, a call or a text. Any of these storms, by the way, that I'm pointing at coming up into the metro, meteorologist Leah Hill is keeping a close eye on those to see if any start to have enhanced rotation, but we really don't see that at this point. They're not even severe thunderstorms.
They're a bit messy, though, and they're going to be noisy with all the lightning that we have with them. So folks heading on the evening commute, I think they're going to have a pretty tough time because of those storms, and I would just build in an extra 10, 15 minutes. It's not the type of thunderstorms that you want to be in a hurry when you drive through them.
Yeah, and they're heavy and they're loud. You're absolutely right. But so far, they're not severe and we're not rotating. The one that is rotating has the red box that's brand new. Tornado warning, same old storm that we've been tracking and giving a heads up. If you're from Germantown, Breeze, Carlisle, we've been on the air and on the live stream mentioning your towns before it even got to you. Now here we are. Maybe you just got indoors and turned on First Alert 4 and now you're wondering what's going on. Well, here's the deal. We've got a radar indicated tornado, so that means we don't have anything spotted on the ground. It's in this hook right here that's hitting Albers now. This storm has been rotating around Smithton, Mascoutah, and now Albers, and this new red box represents the new tornado warning where the rotation is strong enough based on radar that the Weather Service thinks this either could be producing a tornado or could produce one imminently. So you do the right thing by playing it safe rather than sorry and just head down to that tornado shelter. You should already be there in Albers. You've been in a tornado warning for a while now, and we've been alerting you, but it's pretty much over you now. Germantown, it's coming your way next. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds, and it looks like the rotation on storm relative to the Doppler winds is a little farther north, right in this notch right here, as opposed to farther south. So you might be getting hit in Albers by the rear flank downdraft, the back winds that come across, but the rotation, and I'm going to double check that, looks to be strongest right in that inflow notch. Yep. It's right in here. So Albers, definitely stay in your tornado shelter. Most likely, if there's a tornado on the ground, it's just north of 161. If you're in Germantown, you're going to get hit by that hook, the hook echo. I'm going to go back and show you what that is. So there it is. This is going to come right down 161 into Germantown. And I think right now, that's the preferred location if there is a tornado, but sometimes anywhere along this hook is where they can develop. So I still want you in your tornado shelter for sure in Germantown. That inflow notch right there, right in there. And see how it ramps up from green to yellow really quickly? It's a good indication of a really strong inflow, strong storm. So air is flowing up into the storm right there and creating this little notch. This little notch right here because the rain can't come down here. So that's because it's an updraft. That's the downdraft. If you're in Aviston, hail, heavy rain, loud, nasty storm, not the rotation. The rotation is just southeast of you. And on the Doppler winds, we can pinpoint it a little better right here. It's now northeast of Albers. So if you're in Germantown, stay in your shelter. If you're in Breeze, this is coming your way. Using the Doppler winds to try and time this out for you. Breeze, I've got you now in about 8 minutes. Near Highway 50, maybe closer to Beckemeyer in about 15 to 20 minutes. Again, that's the rotation there. I do want to watch a little farther down in the hook. So I'm pinpointing that inflow notch right there, but the hook extends a little farther south, but it'll be right into that inflow notch is the most likely location for a tornado. And that's what we just tracked to Breeze and to Beckemeyer. Bartelso, you are in the tornado warning, but the rotation's going to miss you to the north and northwest. Carlisle, that rotation is going to be close in about 20 to 25 minutes or so. So there's the inflow notch, that's the rotation. I'm not tracking this. There's hail, there's wind. You're gonna see it come because of all this rain. So there'll be dark skies and Mother Nature gives you the warning to get inside and away from windows because you get all this and it starts raining, you get indoors and then all of a sudden the heavy stuff hits. But you don't have much of a warning here, right? Because there's no rain. So there's no rain here, and all of a sudden, tornado pops up. At this point, radar indicated. If you're in Breeze, Germantown, be in your tornado shelter, down in the basement. If you don't have a basement, lowest level, putting as many walls between you and the outside and avoiding windows. That's going to be your safest bet. And hopefully, this is just rotating up aloft. Speaking of which, I'm just going to tilt the radar up a little bit. Yeah, as you go higher up, that's a much stronger rotation. So what may be happening is, and I don't know the height there, but let's say at 6,000 feet, this is a really strong, broad, but strong rotation right here in between Breeze and Germantown. But then you come down to the lowest possible level you can, and it's not quite as strong, and it's right there. Going to just cross north of Germantown, in between Breeze and Germantown, and maybe close to getting into Breeze as well. And that timing, I think, was 8 minutes. Now we're down to about 6 or 7. The southern flank of that, getting into Germantown, maybe just the north side of Germantown, in about 4 minutes. Really heavy rain in South City right now. I realize some people are just getting hammered by storms, and I'm not mentioning your town or your area. There's only one tornado warning, and there's no severe thunderstorm warnings out there right now. So I'm focused on the one that can, create damage and hurt people, and that's this one here that's going to come in between Breeze and Germantown. But yes, there are some just downpours out there. That's Powerhouse Silverado, was in Freeburg. Kyle, where's it at now? Scott Air Force Base. And so basically what we have, that's Kimberly Donahue's out in that, and we have our crews in safe locations behind the storm, but able to check in, like go down to Freeburg, go to Mascoutah, Scott Air Force Base, and check in and see what kind of damage to report the ground truth to you. And at this point, we haven't heard of any damage. Let's hope it stays that way. But if you're in Breeze, tornado shelter, still probably for another 5 minutes or so, maybe 10 minutes. Let's see. I've got that on the east side of Breeze in about 6 minutes. Then Carlisle, we're down to about 20 minutes. If you're in Germantown, you're getting hit by that hook. But remember, in my analysis of where the preferred location for the actual tornado, it's probably up in this notch, the inflow notch here, just north of you. So that what that might represent is just that rear flank downdraft, the strong winds coming around the backside of the storm. But definitely stay Breeze and Germantown in your tornado shelter. You're definitely in the tornado warning. Who would be next out of this? Let's give you an idea downstream. And I'm going to track not just where that inflow notch is, where the most likely area of the tornado, but all the way down to that southern part of the hook that's just clipping Germantown. And push that off to the northeast at about 25 miles an hour or so. So Breeze and Beckemeyer, the two towns that pop up. We know Breeze, we told you to be in your safe shelter. Beckemeyer, you're down to 15. I think when we were first on the air, we mentioned some like 40 minutes, and you weren't even in the tornado warning. So we gave you that first alert, and now we are telling you that very shortly we're going to have a rotating storm that could produce a tornado coming right over your area. All right, so I just want to take another close look at that Doppler winds. It's a still pretty strong signature, and that's the lowest slice that I have that I can get, and it's, I mean, right in between Germantown and Breeze, potential tornado. I'm going to check the debris tracker, and that's inconclusive. I don't see any tornado debris signature there. I'm kind of going back and forth. It's a little noisy here, but most likely what that is all that inflow that's going up into the storm is kicking up like dust and bugs and stuff like that, and that's probably what debris tracker's seeing there. What it tries to do is tries to correlate what it's seeing in the air. And if all the raindrops are about the same size, you get one color. But if everything's a different size, like the bugs and the dust, and of course, if there's debris, oblong, pieces of wood and tree, then you can see the different sized particles that are in the air, and it's an indication if it's located where you think a tornado is that most likely the radar is actually pinging off of debris in the air. Not seeing that.
And Steve, I've been watching that debris tracker for some time. Since we've had the first tornado warning, I have not seen any debris with it. So this tells me that we haven't got any reports of damage, and I'm starting to wonder if we will. But obviously, just because we haven't received reports doesn't mean there wasn't anything brief. And with it still being a strong and moving through a favorable environment, it could certainly still produce something, which is why we still continue to track it. But at this moment, as we've been telling you all, it is still radar indicated, this tornado warning. And that goes until about 5 o'clock, I believe, or 6 o'clock, I'm sorry. On that tornado warning that's moving straight through Breeze, Carlisle, as I mentioned, next in line with that, or as Steve's mentioning, next in line with that. Other than that, that's the only storm that we have with any sort of warning on it. Quick updates for all the folks who are out in St. Louis. Yes, there's heavy rain, frequent lightning with these storms moving through at a busy commute time, but none of them are severe warnings. But if you know anybody who's going to be commuting, just let them know that they're going to be heading through some heavy storms, lots of lightning, going to be slowing them. But I haven't seen any rotation, and that's something that I've been checking every couple of minutes, and none of these storms have shown recently any signs of rotation.
I appreciate that. Yeah, keep an eye on those as they interact with that warm front boundary. Some of those could start to rotate, and again, really heavy rain. Even though it's not a severe thunderstorm, I mean, this is an absolute downpour coming right into St. Louis. Okay, so this is going to be super heavy. It's the type that you could hydroplane on the highway, and create some like short-term flooding out of this. So just be prepared, coming right into the city, through South City. It came through Arnold first, then Oakville, Melville, and now a heavy downpour kind of riding up across 55 right here into, this is 44, here's Highway 40, Interstate 64, and just real heavy rain. Not seeing any significant rotation, but yeah, we got to monitor this really closely to see if that enhances. Another one out near Baldwin, heavy downpour. None of these have severe thunderstorm warnings, but lightning is a danger. You can get 50-mile-an-hour winds. That's not quite the 60-mile-an-hour that warrants the severe thunderstorm warning, but a 50-mile-an-hour wind can take down tree limbs. And so, heavy storms are still happening now, even if there's no severe thunderstorm warnings on these. And I think importantly, like Leah said, like every few seconds, she's checking in to see if there's any significant rotation on any of these storms as they start to bump up against a warm front that's draped across the St. Louis metro that has probably helped enhance the rotation here. By the way, it's 5:27 now. Coming up at 5:30, we'll head over to CBS News, but we're not done tracking the storms. I just want you to know, as long as we have that tornado warning going, we are going to be on our live stream. We're there right now. And what that means is, if you go to First Alert 4 weather app and you scroll down, this is actually our app, you scroll down to that, First Alert Weather Now, it's on right now. If you click on that, you get this. And we'll be there. We'll just continue the play-by-play, and then we'll hop in on Channel 4 as needed. But it's a great tool as well, because if you have to run away from the TV and down to the basement, you can get us there with that constant play-by-play, whether it's on the phone, tablet, or firstalert4.com. We also have that as well. Let's zoom in a little bit more. We mentioned all those heavy storms in the St. Louis metro. At this point, not severe. Continuing to monitor for any rotation. I think the one, before I get back over to the tornado warning, this one's starting to get a little sus. I mean, you're starting to get a little inflow right in here. You're starting to get a little hook back here, so you got inflow on the tail end. Instead of a kind of a straight line little blob moving from south to north, now it's wavy. So when you get that waviness, that's inflow and outflow interacting. And remember, we've been talking about that's where you develop the tornado. This one's not rotating strong enough, but it's getting wavy. So probably bumping up against the warm front and showing signs that we need to monitor those very closely. It's also just really heavy rain. Okay, this is the one that is rotating for sure. That's a view at 55. I mentioned some heavy rain going down 55. That's from Barnes Jewish Siteman in South County on the Ford Skycam network. This one's rotating right over Breeze now. If you're in Albers, you're in the clear. Beckemeyer, Breeze, Carlisle, all going to see this radar indicated tornado warning come your way. And we're going to continue to track it for you. We'll be on that live stream on firstalert4.com and First Alert 4 weather app. If any new warnings pop up across the metro, anywhere in our coverage area, we'll be here for you. We hope you have a safe night.